たい憧れは自分を打ち消すためのものじゃないさよならさもう行かなくちゃ僕よ僕になれと叫ぶなぜだろう傷ついたって答えを探せるさよならさいつかまた会おう君よ君であれと願う僕らの残す足跡もう一度重なるように愛せなかった飼いならしたはずの声も心も僕らしく生きたって誰も名前を呼んでくれないと思ってた追いつきたくて貼り付けた笑顔に君は気づいていたから目をそらしたのつまずいて気づく現在地変わりたい用意された正解当てるための僕じゃないさよならさもう行かなくちゃ僕が僕になれるように誰かの声のままじゃ君に届かないさよならは明日呼ぶサイン君が君を愛せるように曇った鏡捨ててもう一度笑える日まで
All right. Hey, people, welcome back to my stream, and we're going to continue where we left off. Sua just shot Ban, and he's dead. So it is what it is, and he got, investigated too deeply. Well, rip, man. Anyway, let's continue.
信仰の救いあれ。
Surprise, surprise. Sua is a member of the Church of whatever. It's a very long ass name. Talk about overkill. Oops. The hell? There you go. The hell? After all this time, only now you become Chuni? Lamau. Or were you rejected by an in real life girl? In that case, I've got some good news for you. If you stay a virgin until 30, become Mahot Sky. You become a wizard. Mahot Sky. You become a wizard. That's a pro tip. Speaking of pro tips, apparently there's gonna be a festival in about an hour. I'll be at Shibuya Scramble Crossing. Jesus, you're annoying. What the fuck, lol? Well, if that's what you want, you should go. You're a celebrity, so you'll be the center of attention. Maybe you can get someone there to kill you. Turning out my PC monitor, I hugged my knees with my arms.
僕を殺してよ。誰か。
鬼ってば。
In my hand was Seiretan, my one and only ally.
おーい、開けろ。
Perhaps because I've been holding her in my sweaty hands for a while, her slender limbs were all sticky. And not only that, but her arms have been bent.
こら、開けろ。
That voice. It couldn't be. How?
バカ鬼。
There was no way I misheard that. Out of every girl that visited my base, there was only one dumbass that would scream out of it like that. Nanami was here. I was somewhat surprised at how indifferent I felt in response to that fact. I just didn't care. What would her coming here while I was this far gone even do for me? Besides, it wasn't like it was out of the ordinary for Nanami to come here. Hadn't Rumi said that she was going to rescue her
開
anyway?
けないとひどいんだからね。
The noise was starting to irritate me. Just leave a monster like me alone. Nanami should have been focused on her right hand, not me. Not that I knew what happened to it. I didn't have it in me to talk to anyone anymore.
鬼。
but she was being too loud. So I was forced to get up from my chair and head for the door. The door seemed not oh so far away to me, which made me realize I was scared to see her. Positive person. Oh,
やっと出てきた。
nice. I finished. So okay, that's all the delusions in this game. Okay.
生存確認。
As I opened the door, Nanami smiled and waved at me. Frozen in place, she was acting way too normal. She was acting way too energetic. I've seen it. A white bandage wrapped around her right wrist, so why? I then remembered the phone call I got in a few hours earlier. The pained voice asking me to give her right hand back. And now the smile she had right now and the bandage around her right wrist contradicted each other. Nanami was contradicting herself. Oh, I see. She was also a delusion. She had to be. I'd never had a little sister named Nanami to begin with. I got it now. That had to be it. Yo, it's Akiha. Anyway, after ignoring her and heading back into my room, I sat down on the sofa. I once again took hold of my Seiratan figure, gripped her tight, so tight in fact that my hand hurt slightly. But it didn't matter because that pain too was a delusion.
お兄、どうしたの？元気ないじゃん。
Everything in this world was made up of delusions. Delusions developed only within my mind. Both me and this delusion I was looking at were fake.
徹夜でゲームでもやってたの？もっと人間らしい生活したら？え、なになに？
黙れ。
ちょっと、そんな言い方しなくてもいいじゃん。お兄だからって何言っても許されるとか思ってる？
黙れよ。妄想妹が。
妄想？
I surrendered my body to the sofa and looked up at the ceiling. With no particular goal in mind, I started counting the rusty spots. I didn't want to look at Nanami. I'd only feel empty if I did. Well, not that I cared about whether I felt empty or not, given I was just a delusionary existence.
ねえお兄、本当に平気？いつもと全然様子が違うけど。
Worrying about me like a good Imoto, huh? My delusionary sister was worried about me. That fact alone filled me with anger. Besides, who was she to have come in my room like she owned the place?
あ、わかった。お腹空いたんでしょう。
I gritted my teeth.
だったら、ナナが何か作ろうか？
どれ。
鳥って言った？鶏肉？
Toriniku sounds good, but I think he was saying something else, man. No one said a thing about takeout.
鶏肉だと、やっぱ唐揚げかな。でも、一人で作ったことないし。
Toriniku's good. Oh man, don't tell me I'm craving for like fried chicken for dinner. I don't want to eat fried chicken. Actually, I do. It's been ages since I ate fried chicken. I don't know why.
あ、別にお兄のリクエストがあったから作るわけじゃないからね。ナナも今日は鶏肉で何か作りたいなって思ってただけだよ。
This Nanami was really annoying. The fact that she was so similar to the real one wasn't something I could have ignored. Wait, how did he establish that this one's a delusionary Nanami? Wait, what? That's kind of confusing me a bit. Wait, let me turn off the sound of my work laptop. It's not my It's not a conversation I'm part of, and actively at least. Wait, huh? Did the real Nanami even existed in the first place? Then what was this Nanami? Real? The real Nanami? My head became a mess. So I stopped thinking. I didn't care anymore. At the end of the day, everything was a delusion.
包帯取れ。取ってみろ。ボケが。
包帯って、あ、これ？転んで打撲しただけだし。
Just a fall? Was it true? Or was she lying? I wouldn't know if she took it off.
ほんとわがままなお兄だな。じゃあ約束してよ。ナナが包帯取ってみせたらお兄も元気出すって。
The sound of rustling cloth rang throughout the quiet room, followed by a ringing in my ears. My head hurt. These two were delusions, though, so I paid them no mind.
はい、これで満足ってちょっとお兄わざわざ取ったんだからちゃんと見てよ。
I sluggishly lowered my gaze. Nanami had rolled up her uniform sleeve, and she was now sticking her right hand out toward me. And when I looked at her slender arm, I saw. Sore no dare no me. Blood, dripping blood. Bloody words had been cut into her arm, and they said
そ
sore
の
no.
目誰の目？
My vision flashed, and when it passed, just like that, the horrifying wound on her arm was gone. I've been hyperventilating, so I moved to catch my breath. I forcefully bit my lip. Nanami was rubbing the arm she had taken the bandage off.
青あざだいぶ消えてくれたな。最初はすごく腫れてたんだよ。
I didn't know whether that was the truth or not. Sure, there wasn't a wound there, but there had been before. Bro, I hope you figure out that the number one thing that would tell you that this one's a fake or real is what happened to the bangle that she got. I didn't understand anything anymore. I didn't want to think anymore. Oh yeah, he wasn't in that thinking mood, so that's kind of gone. I once again laid my head onto the sofa.
ねえ。ナナミ、
Without meeting her eyes, I called out to my Imoto, or to the girl whose identity I wasn't sure of.
お前が本物でも偽物でもどっちでもいいよ。
Right now, I only wanted one thing.
僕を殺してくれないか。
The front entrance to AH Tokyo General Hospital, Kusunoki Yua fixed her gaze beyond the automatic door. Having been told by Ban to get out of here now, she had reluctantly complied and went outside. However, in her worry, she could not bring herself to go any farther. Ban had followed the mysterious figure and vanished up the hospital stairs. It had not even been 3 minutes since then, but hoping that Ban had already returned, Yua peeked into the lobby. That was after Ban had headed into the hospital. Yua had ignored Momose's orders and had followed after him, all so she could get one step closer to the truth behind her Imoto's death and the true perpetrator. The person that had told Ban to back off over the phone and had abducted Ban's kohai, someone who must have been named Suwa-san, was most likely the same one that had killed her sister Mia. That was the feeling Yua had, and as such, she had been unable to hold back her impulsive emotions. Despite Ban's various warnings about the dangers of involving herself with the case, Yua had come nonetheless. Moreover, it was not as though Yua would be able to achieve anything by coming here. She was nothing more than a powerless high schooler after all. Somewhere in her mind, Yua hoped that Ban would simply come running gallantly back after apprehending the culprit. If that happened, she would have the opportunity to question them directly. Why did my sister have to die? That was the one thing Yua had to ask. Suddenly, Yua felt a gaze upon her. She nervously scanned her surroundings. It had not even been 2 hours since the sun had set. Yet, oddly enough, the hospital's front entrance was eerily quiet. Right next to it was the urgent care entrance, which also served as the entrance for emergencies, and yet not even there housed any signs of the human presence. A train gently ran along its tracks beside the hospital, Hardly any cars passed by the large street in front of it, and there was nary a single passerby. The house between the sleepless cities of Shibuya and Shinjuku, where Yua was now, was akin to an abyss of the darkness, formed in the interstice of two bursts of blinding light. No figure that could conceivably be responsible for the gaze was visible. Holding back her anxiety, Yua placed her hand on her chest and let out a small sigh. Following this, she found herself glancing over at the hospital ward. There, at the entrance at the hospital ward, stood a single girl. The lights were out, rendering the area very dimly lit, and yet the girl's figure was clearly visible amid the darkness.
みやちゃん。
Without intending to, Yua misread that name. Her sense of reason told her it was impossible, but nonetheless, she could not keep those words from escaping. The girl was a mirror image of her, the mirror image of her twin sister that was no longer of this world. Moreover, Yua recognized the clothes she was wearing. She knew, almost for a fact, that they were her sister's clothes. The possibility of her perhaps being a ghost filled Yua with fear that made her hair stand on end. Suddenly, the girl turned and headed for the automatic door marking the entrance to the hospital ward. The moment she grew close enough, the door quietly slid open. It wasn't Ghost. Yua was in shock, but before she could register anything more, she promptly ran after the girl and into the hospital ward. Inside, perhaps due to it being past closing time, it was even quieter than outside. Each time Yua took a step forward, her footsteps echoed forward into the depths of the corridor. It had been just the same in the outward patient ward, but the fact that it was even quieter here made her very uneasy. The girl had disappeared up the stairs. Yua heard the faint sound of laughter coming from ahead. It's like a scene straight from a ghost story. With that on her mind, Yua cautiously made her way up the stairs step by step. She arrived on the second floor. Glancing around the corridor, she did not see anyone, something she had expected. But just as she was suspecting that it may have been a mere illusion, a girl's laughter sounded from the floor above. The voice and the sound of its laughter were identical to what Yua had heard time and time again in the past. Climbing to the third floor and looking down the corridor, Yua saw a girl with the same face as her standing there. One of the victims of the first New Gen case, the group died. Her Imoto, who should have died 2 months ago. Kusanoko Miya stood right there with an unmistakable sense of presence.
そ
Yua removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. However, even after putting her glasses back on, she looked to see that Miya was still there.
みやちゃんなの？どう思う？
A voice so clear it could never be an illusion. And that intrepid smile on her face, the laughter in the air, it was exactly the same as Yua remembered from her sister. Miya had always acted this very same way. In order for her to be the wrongdoer in the eyes of others, she had laughed like that all the time.
みやちゃん本当に私がミヤであなたがユアだと思う？どういうこと？もし逆だったらあなたはミヤ、死んだのはユア、殺したのはあなた。何を言っているの？あなたは親に愛される姉が疎ましくてネットで殺人を依頼したのよ。しか
The
も
coin assassin.
自殺に見せかけるように見ず知らずの4人も一緒に飛び降りさせた。 あなたは姉になりすまして妹の死を悲しみ涙を流しているふりをしながらこれまで姉が独占していた親の愛を手に入れて心の中では告訴演で違うわ。私はユアよ。誰がそれを証明するの？私はユアのはず。でも確信が持てない。私を私だと証明するものって何？顔？名前？記憶？自分のことなのに。自分で自分を証明するなんて不可能。私がミアだっていう可能性もあるの。あなたはいろいろと調べていたじゃない。多重人格、浮遊病、記憶捏造、それから妄想。
The concepts Yua herself had been looking into prior to now showed just how real the ambiguity of memories, or perhaps recollection, truly was. She didn't know, nor understand herself anymore. What was she? Yua cradled her head as she shook it in denial.
あなたは誰？
Was she Yua, who had always played the good girl and was automatically loved and cherished by her parents? Was she Mia, who had always played the bad child and was actively hated by her parents? The child who, despite her actions being her own, offcast her sister glares of jealousy and hatred.
さあ、私は
Mia, or possibly Yua, guided Yua, or possibly Mia, as she walked down the corridor soundlessly.
私と同じ目に遭いなさい。
Yua and Mia, identical twins, face a mirror image of one another, and the boundary that served to differentiate the two was growing more and more blurred. Two enormous boxes stood tall within the darkness, and yet compared to the nearby Shinjuku skyscrapers, they were akin to a small child looking up at their parents. The hospital roof, that was where Yua found herself, having been led there by Mia. A section of the towering fence had been torn open just wide enough to allow a person to fit through it. Whether this was intentional effort, none can say. Mia and Yua, after moving through the torn section to the outer side of the fence, both now stood at the edge of the roof. Before them, the outpatient ward, as that location was lower than the hospital ward. The entire breadth of the roof garden was visible to them. However, the lights were still off, so even if there were people there, Yua would be unable to know. The wind blew strongly on the rooftop. The gale made Yua and Mia's soft hair flutter, along with the hems of their clothes.
私たちはもともと一つだったんだから、また戻るだけ。一歩を踏み出せば。
Bro, I'm having a schizo moment here.
あなたは私になる。
Yua, her eyes vacant of all light, mechanically whispered those emotionless words. Spreading her arms to maintain her balance, she endured the uprising wind. Beside her, Mia, arms spread just as Yua's were, looked at her sister and smiled.
耐える必要なんてないよ。あなたは私の痛みを知らなくちゃならない。さあ、飛んで。そうすれば、私もあなたも同じ痛みを共有するわ。私はどっちなの？私？あなた？それを聞いても意味はないわ。どっちにしたって。話は飛ぶ。
All hesitation left within Yua disappeared. And so, moving her foot forward, she... Gunshots tore through the dark night. And with a start, Yua came to her senses, realizing where she was, and let out a frightful scream. The sheer height of where she stood immediately disoriented her, making her lose her balance. She very nearly fell, but in her desperation, she shot her hand toward the fence behind her and grabbed onto it. Because of this, she successfully managed to avoid being met with a terrible fate. The gunshot had come from the roof of the outward patient ward, leading her to look at it once more. In the circular clearing of the roof garden, she managed to spot multiple figures. There were two of them. One was on the ground, and the other stood beside him.
バンさん
Had the detective shot someone, or had the detective been shot by someone?
何をしてるの？どうして私と同じ痛みを味わおうとしないの？そんなの卑怯よ。ずるいわ。ミヤちゃん。違うわ。私はユアよ。ユアは私。ミヤはあなた。あなたは一体何なの？
We're having a heavy schism moment here, man.
私はあなたの望んだもの。あなたは私の望んだもの。
Mia reached for her sister, placing her hands around Yua's neck. She began to strangle her. Yua felt a strong pressure in her throat. She could no longer breathe. Mia was no ghost. She definitely had a body of flesh and blood, and now she was strangling Yua with it.
お願い。死んでよ。今日ぐらい私のお願いを聞いて。いつも我慢してきたんだから。
Yua's vision grew crimson. She reached her hands out into the air in front of her, but found herself unable to grasp anything. I'm going to die. Awash with the most extreme dread, using her whole body, Yua called upon the strength she did not even know she had as she tried desperately to break free from Mia's grasp. But Mia was too strong. Yua was unable to move her even a single inch. Even Yua's thoughts were dyed crimson. It felt as though her consciousness was being coated in a layer of viscous blood. In a desperate frenzy, she shook her head so violently, her glasses fell from her face. And from that point onward to the outside observer, Yua and Mia were no longer distinguishable. It did not matter who killed whom. The result was arbitrary. If Mia died, all Mia would have to do was become Yua. If Mia died, and all Yua would have to do was become Mia. Feelings of resignation steadily spread throughout Yua's heart. Before her eyes was Mia's, or possibly Yua's face. Seeping with anger. Not wanting to see such a sight, she looked away. And what vaulted into her red light field of vision was the shrubbery. The shrubbery and the flowers adorning the garden. And in her mind, Yua felt that there was a shadow among those flowers, the likes of which she had never seen before. Though perhaps it was simply an illusion. She had dropped her glasses in the struggle after all. However, no longer able to breathe and suffering from so much pain, a faint sense of peace gradually rose from within her. Despite her thoughts of simply surrendering herself and peacefully passing on, her instinctive desire not to die denied her of that peace. It made Yua extend her hand toward the desperate shadow. Her distance from the shrubbery was about 2 meters. How she was now, there was no way she could reach it, even if she were to extend her hand. And yet, her fingertips touched something hard and cold. She then grasped it, almost completely unconsciously. The second she did so, Kusunoki, Yua's consciousness, right on the verge of fading, instantly became clear, as though the haze has been dispelled from her mind. Well. There was an invisible yet fierce impact. Her sister, rained upon by showering red lights akin to petals, was blown away, languidly standing up as she gasped for air. Yua looked at what she was holding and instantly doubted her eyes. Well, looks like she got her D sword. It was a sword. All too elegant, like glasses worn by one. All too sharp, like the wit shown by the other. All too vigorous. All too immaculate. All too profound, its nature veiled. All too delicate, its frame easy to fracture. And so beautiful, it beckoned tears from all who laid eyes upon it. The object now in her hands had reminded Yua of Ayasa's sword that she had seen at the overpass, and of the sword that Ban had spoken of Senna's.
今のは何？
Mia, after being blown away by the mysterious impact, had been buried in the shrubbery, and as she held her head, she freed herself from it and crawled back to her feet.
あなたは何をしたの？私はミヤちゃん。私やっとわかったわ。どうしてここまで一生懸命あなたの死の真相を調べていたのか。私を殺そうとしたの？私はまた殺されるところだったの？また？結局私はあなたが怖かったのよ。当てつけに死なれたと思ったの。あなたがわからなかったの。あなたが死んだ理由は私のせいじゃないって証明して安心したかった。最低のお姉ちゃんね。どうして死んでくれないのよ。
She could no longer get through her. Their two selves, once together in the beginning, had now diverged completely, never to return to one again. Mia reached to grab her once more, reminded of the pain she had experienced before. Yua's trembles, the dread returned, leading her to brandish her sword, it curved a sharp trail, and then cut the ghost in half. Mia's movements came to a halt, and with a look of shock on her face, she traced the wound of the gouged flesh with her hand, beginning from left side of her torso, ending all the way to her right shoulder. No blood sprang
ミヤちゃん
forth.
は2ヶ月前に死にました。それならあなたは誰なんですか？
Countless particles, large enough to be seen by the naked eye, came flowing out from within Mia. Her body, now enveloped in bubbles, gradually collapsed to the ground as her silhouette faded and faded. It was now transforming into something else. Yua, with the feelings of incredulity, saw what it was. After a moment's wait, a man with an impressively large physique appeared in Mia's place. He was wearing a denim shirt, jeans, and a rucksack on his back. Yua had never seen the man before.
誰？あなた誰？どうしてミヤちゃんの姿に？どうやって？
Yua backed away in confusion, still holding her D sword. The man was similarly bewildered. He had likely not predicted that he would be uncovered, leaving him to act in a very clearly frantic manner.
お前こそなんでまさかこのガキギガロマニアックスか聞いてないぞ
Gigalomaniacs.
くそどうしたら
And then, ignoring gravity itself, it came flying in, its path almost horizontal.
Huh?
By the time the man looked behind him, it had already perforated the rucksack on his back. And from the same rucksack, a pale flash of light surged. By the way, when I heard the sound effect, the first thing that came to my mind was like the opening song of Steins Gate for some reason. It sounded like this. Anyway, the man, as though he had received an electric shock, stiffened up like a pole. His eyes shut open wide, and only a moment later, he lost consciousness, falling face first to the ground. He foamed at the mouth, and ever so often, his body would twitch. The object that had pierced the rucksack was a sword quite like the one Yua had obtained just a moment ago, with beautiful curves adorning its every edge.
これ
Yua remembered the sword. She had seen it once before. A single presence approached her. Yua raised her head. Someone then emerged from the darkness.
何事かと思ったらこんな騒ぎになっていたのね。岸本さん。
Without a change in her expression, Ayase glanced at the sword Yua held in her hand.
感じる大いなる意志を。私がこの病院に居続けた意味はこういうことだったんだわ。
Yua had sunken to the ground, dumbfounded. Ayase picked up the glasses that had fallen near her, and crouched down in front of Yua, and peered into the girl's face. Then, with her slender fingers, she brushed Yua's hair aside and gently put her glasses back in place.
君もグラジオールの黒騎士だったのね。
And with that, Ayase gave a faint transient smile. Nice. Nice. Yo, Akiha.
僕を殺してくれないか。
Yo, it's Akiha. I keep pointing out Akiha. Nanami's face stiffened. But shortly after that, she put on a clearly forced smile.
お兄、つまんない冗談やめなよ。
Just a little Joden Emoto. The reaction wasn't like her. Normally, she wouldn't just laugh it off. Normally, she'd angrily yell, "Don't say that, you dumb jerk!" Then spend the next few minutes reprimanding me. Well, not that it mattered. I didn't care. If she wouldn't kill me, I had no more business with this Nanami. She could just up and vanish for all I care. I locked eyes with Seiratan. If only Seiratan was in the third dimension, she would have gladly granted my wish. If I was going to be born as a delusionary existence anyway, at least have me be born in the second dimension.
ねえ、そんな冗談は置いといて、その話があるんだ。
Just a little Choden.
あのね、お兄にもらったバングル、なくしちゃったの。どうせ適当に扱ってたんだろうとか言わないでね。ナナ、そんなことしてないもん。本当に大切にしてたもん。なのに、どこでなくしたのかもわかんなくて。
What? You treasured it? Seriously? Incredible. Genuinely fucking incredible. Comedy gold, really. Besides, I gave you it, didn't I? So it's worthless anyway.
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
Besides, the fact that I'd given Nanami the bangle in of itself was suspicious. It could have been a delusion too, for all I knew. That was why nothing in this world was worth anything. Each and everything in my memories was worthless.
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
お兄が初めてくれたプレゼントだったのにな。なんでなくしちゃったりしたんだろう。
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
お兄、聞いてる？
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
お兄はどうしていつもそうなの？
Her head hung low, and her fists clenched tight. Nanami let out a faint whisper.
たまにはお兄ちゃんらしく頼りがいのあるとこ見せてよ。
What now? You're here to criticize me. You're wasting your time. After all, I'm a delusionary existence.
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
All I did was stare blankly at Seiratan smile. There was no reason to listen to Nanami. It was all pointless. After all, I was a delusionary existence.
今までずっとナナがしっかりしなきゃって思って頑張ってきたけど、でもね、やっぱりナナだってたまには誰かに甘えたいよ。誰かにじゃなくてお兄に甘えたいよ。
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
だってお兄はナナのお兄なんだから、お兄に頼りたいって思うことナナにもあるんだよ。
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
そりゃいつもああしろこうしろ言われてお兄も嫌だろうけど、それはお兄がだらしないから仕方なく。言いたいことはそういうことじゃなくて。
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
ナナだっていろいろ愚痴を聞いてもらいたい時とか泣きたい時とかあるんだよ。お兄に優しくしてもらいたい時とかあるんだよ。
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
ねえお兄、ナナの話聞いてよ。ナナ今すごく悲しいんだよ。お兄にもらった大切なバングルなくなっちゃって、声出して泣きたいくらい悲しくて辛くて、お兄に抱きしめてほしいのに、お兄に頭撫でて慰めてほしいのに。ねえお兄、今日だけはナナのわがまま受け止めてよ。
Raising my head in a daze, I saw Nanami crying. She was hanging her head low, and while she was trying her best to hold them in, tears run down her pained face all the same. What? You're gonna cut off such a good scene? What? What the fuck? That was a good scene. Oh, well, whatever. Let's go to the real Nanami. I hate that cutaway. I don't know, man. That was a good emotional high. I was really feeling it, to be honest. Anyway, upon opening a glass door, the very moment Remy entered what appeared to be a lobby, a twitch of fear ran through her. A chill breeze, cold enough to freeze her, overcrept up her legs. There was no sign of anyone, a fact that was obvious for this place, and this place alone. And yet, when Remy thought about what awaited her, she could not help but wish that someone could have been there with her. Before her was a soundproof door, a door akin to those of a movie theater. From a small crack within that gateway, the chilled breeze came wafting through. The breeze was accompanied by a white haze, a haze akin to snow that arose from dry ice. What the fuck? Anyway, Rumi fiercely bit down her lip. In her hands was her D sword, already rebooted.
だから大丈夫。だから、怖がっちゃダメだ。
Desperately telling herself that, she gulped a single time before proceeding to burst open the soundproof door with her shoulder. Rumi's eyes went wide at the scene she saw before her. There stood a device that was beyond enormous. Enshrined in the center of the dome-shaped room, it could be described only as a monster. An ominous sound rang faintly throughout the spacious room. It was a low-pitched noise, akin to the deep growl of a beast. A sound that signified the device's operation.
の圧もう動いてるんだ。
君のおかげですよ。
A voice replied to Rumi's vexed murmurs. The moment she heard that voice, Rumi felt her very soul tremble.
咲畑リミ。1年半ぶりですね。
Rumi's instinct was to be engulfed in fear. Shivers rose from the depth of her heart. Abominable memories attacked her consciousness. Her grim past was on the brink of being resurrected. To endure such a threat, Rumi strengthened the grasp of her D sword and lightly shook her head. Once she regained her hold, she shifted her gaze toward the voice. Right beside the enormous device, Noah too was him. The figure of a man donned in a suit, and by his side,
ナナちゃん
was Nishijo Nanabi, held captive. Her uniform was torn, and a bandage soaked with blood was wrapped around her right wrist. Her head hung toward the floor, and she looked terribly, terribly pale. Faced with such pitiful sight, Rumi was at a loss for words. Crucified in Jesus of Nazareth's likeness. No. What held her now could not be called a cross. It was something far different, for it took the shape of pure, unadulterated malice. The entirety of this world's evil, the entirety of this world's disorder, the entirety of this world's immortality. It would be no exaggeration to refer to it as a symbol sculpted to those very attributes.
君がこの1年半どこで何をしていたかについて興味はありませんが、困りますね。あまりうろちょろされると。
The man, Norosagenichi, spoke in a peaceful tone, but his voice was embedded with the sharpness of a blade. Doing everything in her power not to sink to her knees, Rumi glared back at Norose.
ナナちゃんを離して。
ほう。まさかここに来たのはお友達を助けに来たという理由ですか？
ナナちゃんを離して。その子は何も関係ないでしょ。
では直接話してみてはどうですか？
Norose's offer left Rumi confused. She was acting brave, but in truth, the moment she had seen Norose's face, her heart had been seized by fear, and her legs had begun to tremble. Unable to move an inch from where she stood, she called out to the crucified Nanami.
ナナちゃん。
Nanami's head ever so slightly stirred. Her eyes, which had been closed until that very moment, opened faintly. She raised her head, and her hollow eyes fell upon Rumi.
リミさん。大丈夫。今助けてあげるから。
In the middle of Rumi's sentence, Nanami's face twisted in pain. Her face was pale, and her breathing labored.
痛いよ。右手が痛いの。
And then, with a very little resistance, Nanami's body slid off the cross.
ナナちゃん。ねえ、リミさん。
Without getting up from the floor, Nanami lifted her head and let her gaze roam about the room. It was as if she was searching for something.
ナナのバングル知らないかな。見つからなくて、ナナのバングルどこにもなくて。
She staggered to her feet, and this time she searched her surroundings with her left hand.
バングルだね。わかった。私知ってるから。だから私と一緒にここを出よう。病院に行こう。ね。手が痛いよ。ナナはなんでリミさんのことを知ってるんだっけ。前にどこで会ったんだっけ。リミさんなの。リミさんがナナのバングル。嘘。どうして。ひどいよ。
Rumi, who realized that something was wrong with Nanami, instantly looked at Norose. With a scornful grin painted on his face, he simply observed Rumi and Nanami's exchange.
ナナちゃんに何を見せてるの。
Nanami's gaze was fixed on Rumi. Trembling like a newborn fawn, she slowly stood up, and then she held out her right wrist, as if offering Rumi her palm. A bandage, drenched in blood. It almost appeared as if her hands were still connected, and yet one after the other, vibrant scarlet drops fell from the bandage without reprieve. By her feet, a pool of blood grew larger and larger with each passing second. She needs medical attention, fast. But despite how frantic she was, Rimi was unable to get any closer. For getting closer to Nanami would mean getting closer to that man. It frustrated her greatly, leaving her on the verge of tears.
リミさんが持ってたの。ナナちゃん、帰ろう。こっちに来て。どうして持ってくの。返して。ナナのバングル返して。落ち着いて、ナナちゃん。お兄からもらったナナの大切なあれは誰にも渡したくないの。返してよ。ナナちゃん、返して。
Together with her pain scream, a single drop of blood fell from her right wrist. Before it had opportunity to hit the ground, the drop crystallized at high speed, originating from nothing with the drop at its center. A mineral-less object burst into view. It was as if a carpet formed from minerals had been ripped through a rift in space. In the blink of an eye, it took shape. It resembled a cross, far more than the object that had previously held Nanami. Or perhaps it was a sword. A sword which pierced itself perpendicularly, as if rejecting all.
これはディソード。返してよ。お願い。
And Nanami, as if embracing it, held close to her chest. Tears, born from all the sadness within her, fell upon it. Her D-sword flickered scarlet, as if one with her pulse.
ないと。リミさんのこと許さない。そんな。ナナちゃんもキガロマニアックスだったの。
Kind of makes you think their whole bloodline was Gigalomaniacs thing.
ナナのわがまま受け止めてよ。
I saw Nanami crying. She was hanging her head low, and while she was trying her best to hold them in, tears ran down her pained face all the same. I took one look at her, and then I returned my gaze to the ceiling, resuming my mission of counting the rusted spots.
抜かれたって僕には何もできないよ。 僕は妄想の存在なんだから。妄想の。
そんなこと言わないでよ。お兄が妄想のはずないじゃん。だってナナは小さい頃のお兄のこと知ってるもん。いっつもナナに世話かけさせて、ちっとも頼りにならないけど、でもお兄は昔からずっとナナと一緒だったよ。
Wait. She was right. It was just as she said. I had memories from when Nanami was little. I had memories from my childhood. I had memories of watching the news reporting on the bus accidents my classmates had been in. The one that happened on the field trip I hadn't been able to go to. I even remembered my teacher, Mr. Saito-san, who had passed away in the accident. The words of Rimi, a total stranger, or the words of Nanami, who I've grown up with. I went without saying which to believe. The right person to believe wasn't Rimi. The right person to believe was Nanami. If Nanami was real, that meant that I, too, was real.
ななみ。
I extended my hand toward her. Nanami's existence was my own one and only hope. The sole existence that would save me.
助けて。ななみ。助けて。
If Nanami's warmth was real, then I could prove that I was real, too. Nanami, who had been crying from loneliness, wiped away her tears, looked at me with her reddened eyes, smiled at me with her tearful smile, and
抱きしめてくれる？
I nodded. Then again, then once more. By doing so, if I could save Nanami, by doing so, I could save myself. I would gladly hug this bratty Imoto of mine, no matter the time or place. I would hug my one and only sister in this world, the one that shared my blood.
ななみ。助けて。
I wanted to feel her warmth as soon as I could. And so, opening my arms to welcome her into my chest, I prepared to hug her. Lightly, ever so tightly.
お兄。
But right at the very moment, I took my meds! No! I took my meds! Nanami's body was enveloped in a faint light, and she burst into countless blue particles. One after another, the particles burst like bubbles in the air which my arms remained extended, never receiving the hug I so desired, my chest never feeling the warmth I so desired. Right before my very eyes, Nanami had vanished. I also had the same I also had the same reaction, man. What the fuck? Well, I know the truth, but you know, it still hurts. It still hurts. With only her left hand, Nishijo Nanami tightly embraced the deed sword that had been born of her own blood. Her right arm, meanwhile, only lay upon it. Her blood, seeping from the bandage of her right wrist, slowly ran down the sword's fuller.
痛い。知ってたの？ナナちゃんがギガロマニアックスだって。
Rimi's question was directed at Norose, but evidently chosen to remain a spectator. No matter how much Rimi glared his way, he always retained the same composed look on his face.
偶然の産物というものですよ。
ナナちゃんにひどいことしたくせに何が偶然なの？
君の時のような苦労はしませんでした。 我が社にはすでに覚醒させるためのマニュアルが確立していますから。もっとも西条匠にだけはそのマニュアルも通用しませんが、イレギュラーな化け物は扱いづらいことこの上ない。
化け物だなんて言わないで。
君も化け物だからですか？
そういう話はしてない。
虚無から生まれたものだからと言い換えた方が良かったですね。
Averting her gaze, Rumi bit her lip in frustration. Her trembling had yet to cease. In direct opposition to her wish to see Nanami, her legs refused to move. It was as if they had taken root inside the floor. Norase, meanwhile, caressed Nanami's head, almost lovingly, as if he was under no threat whatsoever. Nanami had no reaction to this. She simply hung her head low as she repeatedly drew shallow breaths.
闇のある一点だけを灯しているスポットライト、その周囲には無数の死体が転がっているのでしょうが、誰にも見えない。君自身にもです。
そんな話やめて。
例えば君が自殺をしたら、スポットライトは数十センチ横にずれて君を闇で覆ってくれるでしょう。そして何も知らない別の誰かが代わりにスポットライトを浴びる。
Prompted by Rumi's sharp tone, Norase shrugged his shoulders then returned to silence.
痛い。ナナちゃんを解放してほしいんだけど。
拘束は解きましたが、
連れて帰る。
構いませんよ。もう用済みです。
ナナちゃん入ろう。その件は消して。
だったらバングル返して。
返すから。
Rumi knew where Nana's hand was being kept. On that day, on the night Nanami's hand had been delivered to Takami's room. After Takami had collapsed from sheer humiliation on the roof of O front, Rumi had retrieved the hand from within the refrigerator. Shogun was the one who had it now. It was in cold storage to keep it from decomposing. The bangle, too, was
お兄からもらったの。ナナのだよ。バングル勝手に持って行って。ひどいよ。
Nanami's voice, which had only been speaking in incoherent mumbles, was gradually growing more and more intense.
落ち着いて深呼吸して。自分をしっかり持って。
一つ聞きますが、
Norase's sudden interruption elicited a click of Rumi's tongue, though only in her mind.
西条匠にとっては君たち二人のうちどちらがより重要度が高い存在ですか？
That is a fucking that question. He asked the right question, man, to start a fight. And it wasn't Rumi isn't obviously gonna start the fight. It's gonna be Nana-chan. Rumi cast her eyes downward,
リミさんなんか
while Nanami instead raised her head. A sparkle returned to her once empty eyes, a glaring, brilliant shine, one that warranted only a single descriptor: abnormal. In a panic, Rumi frantically attempted to brace herself, only to be frozen in place by sudden darkness. It was as if all lights had been turned off. Rumi had no way of knowing whether it had been intentional or accidental.
負けちゃダメ。
Rumi whispered so in an attempt to encourage herself. Her voice made the air undulate, but it melded itself into the dark before long. She then noticed that she could no longer hear Noatu's growling rumblings. I hate the dark. It always reminded me of back then. Rumi tried looking around, but all she could see was darkness, spread through every corner. No speck of concept known as light existed. Could she not see because it was dark? Or could it perhaps be because her sight was not working properly? She had even lost the ability to tell up from down. She could not tell where she was anymore. Her five senses had been eroded by darkness, and now her body was unable to recognize anything. As if her body had been turned into gas. As if her consciousness had slipped away from its vessel. Past and present fused as one, and Rimi's memories began to intermix. When was now? When was the past? Then, in the world ruled only by sheer darkness, a single ray of light shone down, and there, with that circular spotlight, was Rimi, cradling her knees close to her chest. Rimi was seeing this very scene from within the darkness. It's the same as back then. Back then, Rimi had nothing. Before she knew it, she had been confined and tortured, but rather than anything physical, the psychological pain she suffered had been far greater. A daily life born from the depths of hell, a daily life consisting solely of enduring. How she had been before that, Rimi did not know. When and how she had been confined, for how long had she been tortured, that Rimi did not know. But something told her that this was not due to memory loss. The moment she suddenly opened her eyes, a consciousness known as herself had been born, or so she felt. Perhaps the one inhabiting this body before her, unable to escape from all the pain, had ended her own life with her delusions. And then perhaps a new her, a new personality, the current Rimi, had been born. Perhaps there had been countless others hers before her. Even the name Sakihata Rimi may have been different each time. To myself, I don't exist. Something moved amid the darkness. Rimi stood up, then slowly began to move toward it. And as she moved, so did the spotlight. And what she found was a dead Rimi, lying on the ground. Without ever looking at Rimi, a whisper flowed from Rimi's mouth.
あなたは何番目？私は。
Rumi's eyeballs twitched incessantly. An endless amount of tears ran down from the corners of her eyes. Her D sword had slipped from her hands, and Rimi sank to the floor. Much like a child would, she covered her face with her hands and weakly shook her head. I'm sorry. I couldn't do it. Nanami stared at her with a vacant look on her face, while Norase let out a short, disinterested snort. What an asshole. What a straight up asshole, man. Seida. Akira. Yo, we're having our schism moment right now. Nanami had vanished without a trace. She had turned into bubbles before my very eyes. Her existence had simply ceased to exist.
ななみ、どこだよ。出てきてよ。いるんだろ。また、いたずらか。隠れてるんだ。やめろよ。
My vision grew blurry from my tears. No matter how many times I wiped them away, the lukewarm droplets kept pouring out. But both this warmth and the feelings made me shed these tears were delusions. I myself was one after all. Nanami had been a delusion. I've been stupid to believe it would be okay. My hope had been crushed just like that.
ねえ、いつ、この妄想って冷めるの？早く冷めてよ。
Not even I knew who I was talking to. But right now, I was fine with anyone. I just wanted to be heard.
この
Is that Rika
妄想
Furude? I'm trying to figure out.
僕は本当はイケメン
I think that's
なん
Miku.
だ。そうに決まってる。物分かりのいい妹と優しい姉がいるんだ。
Onachin and Imoto. Nice combination, bro.
可愛い彼女と付き合ってて、その子がリミとかセナみたいな電波女じゃなくて、
Demba ona.
セーラさんみたいないい子なんだ。
Demba ona.
あなたは妄想の存在なんだよ。
Groveling on the floor, I buried my head into the mountain of trash and tightly gripped Seiratan. I tried my best to avert my eyes from reality as I pounded the floor with my fists, but I couldn't. Rumi's words pummeled my mind relentlessly.
死にたい。死にたいよ。どうして誰も僕を殺してくれないんだ。ねえ、テーラタン殺して、僕を殺して。
そんなに死にたいの？
死にたい。こんなのもう嫌だ。自分の存在が嫌だ。何も考えたくない。生きていたくない。
かわいそうなタッキー。だったらすぐに殺される方法を教えてあげる。
This is why you're my waifu. Seiratan always devoted herself to me. Commendably so.
とりあえず外に出るんさ。
外に
Doing as I was told, I stood up and headed for the door, and then after nearly tripping and falling over trash countless times, I exited my base. I had no need to question her. Seiratan would never betray me. Seiratan was my waifu, after all, and she wasn't 3D. Once I was outside, a strange sound hit my ears. The sound. Hadn't I heard it somewhere before?
この音を追いかけて。
追いかけたら殺してもらえるの。
そういうこと。
優しく殺してもらえるかな。
私が保証するよ。
よかった。やっと死ねる。
Sound was my messiah. The bell of salvation would grant me passage to the promised land. With Seiratan in my hand, I set out toward the sound. Whenever I got close to the sound, it would move farther away, and almost like it was guiding me somewhere. Every time I seemed to be on it, it would quickly become distant. Every time I seemed to lose track of it, it would come close and wait for me, as though it had a will of its own. A sound with a will of its own. It reminded me of Shogun's existence. His face flashed through my mind, but I quickly grew indifferent to it. Whether it was him or someone else, as long as someone killed me, I didn't mind. I even stopped wondering about the true nature of the sound. I was a delusionary existence, and I was going to die pretty soon, so there was no point in caring. With my head completely empty of all thoughts, like a moth to flame, I staggered after the sound. A barrage of noise now surrounded me. I was unable to differentiate any of them. With a click of my tongue, I tried to find the origin of the clamor, only to gulp instead. Suddenly, without me realizing it, I was standing in a scrambled crossing. It was then I realized the clamor was coming from the sheer number of people cramped into the crossing. It was almost jam-packed. Everyone was pushing right against each other, like a morning train ride during rush hour. Compared to when I've been crowd-crashed from the top of O Front, there was an even bigger number of people here. Now that I thought about it, Grim had mentioned something about this. Something about there being a festival at Scramble Crossing tonight. What the hell is this, Sarah? I have nothing but horrible memories of this place. Why did you bring me here? Alright.
リベンジってこと。
Where's the person who's gonna kill me, Sarah?
目の前にいるっしょ。
目の前。
The tremendous crowd on this cold autumn night. Just what kind of festival could make so many people gather here, to the point of there being no room to breathe? Everyone was focused on me. I braced myself for it to happen again. Being verbally abused, laughed at, humiliated. My legs froze as I recalled the trauma from back then. And yet...
頑張れ
応援してるね。頑張って西条くん。
華々しく散ってこい。若いのに勇気があるわね。お前のこと忘れないからな。最後まで見守っててやるぞ。男を見せてくれ。
The onlookers' reactions were different from last time. Rather than insults, everyone was hitting me with kind words of encouragement. I was so confused I had to blink a few times. Were they cheering me on?
そのための祭りだもん。みんなさ、タッキーを待っててくれたんだよ。
Before me, a pathway showed itself at the center of the crowd of people. They formed an arch with their arms, urging me to go through. It was just like an elementary school graduation. Past the many arms was the front to O Front, entrance to O Front, and so I nervously started heading toward it. As I walked, words of comfort were thrown my way without end. Once I stepped inside O Front, even Tatsuya, Sudaya, and Starbucks employees greeted me with applause. I'm just going to read the real name. I don't care about this. Courage gradually came to me. Courage to finally die. The rooftop of O Front was just as dark as last time. I gulped. It reminded me of what had transpired last time I come here. I hesitated to move any farther for a moment. Even after gathering all that courage, I was made painfully aware of how much of a pussy I truly was. No matter what happened, that would never change.
きっと戻ってくると信じてたよ。
Suddenly, a wheelchair creaked, and together with that noise, just as he had last time, Shogun showed himself. He was wearing a Dark Spider helmet today as well. But Shogun wasn't the only one here.
よくもう一度挑戦する気になったな。
たくみちゃん、すごいな。西条くんのおかげで私も勇気をもらいました。君はとても崇高だわ、たくみ。
Senna, Kozubi, Yua, Ayase. All of them stood in the line, smiling at me.
一緒に飛ぶわ、私たち。あなたと。だからね、怖くないよ。
On both sides of me, Kozubi and Ayase took one of each hand, took one of my hands each. But it wasn't just us that held hands. Senna and Yua joined us, too. All five of us stood hand in hand. Was this a recreation of the group dive? The crowd down below watched us with bated breath clap in unison. It was as if they were giving us their blessing, bestowing us.
さようなら。君のことは忘れないよ。
Shogun waved us goodbye with his slender hand. Then Kozubi and Ayase pulled me in, as if they were inviting me to frolic with them, as if they were inviting me to dance with them. All while they had the most gentle smiles on their face. also without feeling even an ounce of fear, I, ever so smoothly, was able to dance away into the air. Such thoughts came to mind. How wonderful it would be if I could die with such a happy death. And yet in the end, it too had been a delusion. The path of people in front of me was real, the path that seemed to guide me forward, but no one was making an arch with their arms. Everyone looked at me, but their eyes were cold and sharp, staring daggers at me, with what felt close to murderous intent. Everyone was out for blood. No one had been waiting for me. No one had given me their blessing. All the energy that they had back when I humiliated myself on top of Oprah was gone. The reality was, I probably wouldn't be able to die a happy death, but I already expected that even before all this. Even so, it didn't matter to me. As long as I die, it didn't matter. As long as someone killed me, it didn't matter. And so, I laughed and laughed, walked through the path between the people. When I looked up, I realized that all 4 of the enormous Jumbotrons were showing a footage of me walking through the crowd. I was sure that, just like last time, this was a national broadcast too. If the viewer rate was even 40%, I would die while being watched by approximately 48 million people. The death of me was no more than a delusionary existence. The death of me who had no value whatsoever. The death of me who was wholly, entirely worthless. Is that what you all want to see? Well then, congratulations, here you go. It doesn't matter either way to me. As long as I die, I don't care how many people see it. And so I stood before the battery of cameras and microphones. Swarm of flash burst in unison. Blinding lights flashed intermittently. Straining my eyes, I fought to endure them. Then as a reporter that was probably in his 40s spoke up. I'd seen him on a number of talk shows before.
西尾君、今回はどんなパフォーマンスを見せてくれるんだい？ところで、実は今日の昼に逮捕された貼り付け事件の容疑者は実行犯に過ぎなくて黒幕がいるっていう話があるんだけど、どう思うかな？
Why was this random guy acting all buddy-buddy with me? And what was that last part supposed to mean? Was he asking for my opinion? Huh. I guess when the media called up their criminal psychology professors every time, they always said that same standard uninteresting bullshit. Even an amateur like me could serve as a replacement. Regardless, I couldn't have any less of an opinion on what the guy was asking about. I had lost all interest in Eugen. I've come here to be killed, not to answer questions. I have no energy for it.
それでね、西尾君、ズバリ聞くけど、真犯人と目される人物は通称その目誰の目と言われていて、それは君なんじゃないかっていう噂があるんだよね。
そうかもね。
And whispers were broadcast all throughout Shibuya via Jumbotron speakers. Commotion ensured. Bloodthirsty atmosphere got even stronger among the people gathered here. Just kill me already. Set me free. Stop asking me for things. And yet, despite my wishes, the microphones came even closer. They were pushed so violently toward me. The next step would be one straight into my mouth. The other reporters too were raining questions down on me incessantly.
それは事件への関与を認める発言と考えていいんですか？
現実とゲームとの区別ができなくなるような経験はありますか？
逮捕された小前田容疑者との関係について聞かせてください。
人を殺したのはやはりゲーム感覚だったりします？
In a sense, I was like a video game character. Someone, please reset me. Just get me to the game over once and for all. As soon as those words left my mouth, the crowd at the peak of its tension exploded.
死ね！
人でなしきちん
殺してやるよ！
地獄に落ちろ！
死刑にしろ！ぶち殺せ！殺人鬼！
I was overwhelmed by the waves of people, and as the crowds and shouts swarmed, I was swallowed up by the undulating masses. I was tossed around and jostled, crushed to nothing and pulverized. Being shoved by people in all directions, my body started floating. My soles left the ground. No matter how much I struggled, I couldn't do anything. I was struck on the head, punched in the arms, but none of it was painful enough to kill me. And with no room to breathe, I started to suffocate. But I didn't resist. I entrusted my body to the chaos, and doing so, the pressure suddenly disappeared. Then my body fell to the floor. Seiratan fell from my hand and dropped onto the asphalt. Countless feet lined up like trees in the forest, and as they withered about, my wife who rolled through the gas between them. Despite extending my hand, I couldn't reach her. Her face, completely with endless radiant smile of hers, a smile that soothed my soul, was stepped on by someone's shoes. Her small body was kicked farther away, and some lady in red high heels ended up crushing her torso. Rip.
Sarah.
Rip Seiratan. No matter how much I called out to her, no answer came. My one and only ally was gone. It felt like my chest was being crushed by sorrow. I lost all reason to stay in this world, to live. And when I looked up, surrounded by people as I was, even the night sky was hidden away from me. No one noticed I was there, slumped down onto the ground. Even though I was right here, even though I was asking for someone to kill me, why was everyone ignoring me? Suddenly, I felt it. Right on the nape of my neck. The tingling sensation. God's gaze.
君は
And within my mind,
ここで死んじゃダメだ。
a certain voice rang. I gulped
イソードを手に入れて。
and firmly gritted my back teeth.
将軍
I searched for that wheelchair among the crowd, for that bastard cosplaying as Dark Spider. So you were the one behind this festival, huh? I knew it. Are you planning to wheel out here and threaten me, all while you're in your offensive Dark Spider cosplay? You trying to recreate what happened last time? I wish for that. The entire time I've been alive, I've just been some tool for everyone's amusement, and I couldn't take it anymore.
あの時の自称将軍は僕じゃない。僕はコスプレはしないよ。
I don't care. Just kill me, or please.
あいつらが動き出しているんだ。この場は今以上の混乱になるよ。
They?
すべての黒幕。この混乱を引き起こした者たち。混乱を利用して利己を追求しようとする者たち。彼らを止められるのは君だけなんだ。
I stood up. The angry voices kept surging above my head. No one was looking at me. The onlookers and the people from media were all jumbled together, grabbing each other, cursing at each other, punching each other. Why were they...
沈黙の兵器。ノア2はすでに稼働してる。この混乱が起とされた一番の目的は、無差別人体実験。
Something hard hit my head. A sharp pain ran through me, a pain so intense I thought my skull had been broken. My hands automatically shot up from my head, cradling it. As I looked around with tears in my eyes, I found a rock on the ground the size of a fist. A tiny smear of blood-colored part of it. Someone had thrown that rock, and it hit me. A throbbing pain coursed through me. Moving my hand toward the source, my fingers touched something sticky, bringing my hand down in front of my face. I saw blood in my fingertips. My own blood. I heard a dry explosion in the distance, followed by a lady screaming. A gunshot. There were people with guns here? Why was everyone so worked up? Why was everyone fighting each other despite being total strangers? Why was this so chaotic? The villain sacrifice everyone was waiting for, was it mine?
渋谷の GE レート。バイオリズムがありえないくらいに上昇してるんだよ。 言ったでしょ。無差別人体実験だって。この場にいる人たちは今、見えない攻撃を受けているんだ。
Then I heard a sound, a creaking, rusty sound, a sound akin to a dying woman grasping for air, the sound of a wheelchair. Despite how many people there were, despite the wall of people searching frantically, Shogun moved his wheelchair forward, and without bumping into anyone, without getting dragged into a single fight, he made his way right to me. Ever so small, with a body of skin and bone, it was covered in wrinkles and looked so frail. It was as if he might break at the slightest touch. His eyes were cloudy as could be. I didn't know what he was looking at, nor what he saw through those eyes. I couldn't bring myself to look away anymore, and suddenly the turmoil surrounding me began to grow distant.
ずっと、君を見ていたよ。
It was the same voice as the time we first met. It wasn't the strange voice I heard at O-Front.
君は誰なの？
僕は、君だよ。
Oh! And with those words, I finally understood.
僕を妄想して生み出したのも、神の自然の正体も君だったんだね。
He was my creator. The existence who envisioned me within a delusion. Someone who I could never hope to match up to.
君の名前は
西条、匠。
The real me. The original me.
君はいくつなの？
君と同い年だよ。君の、設定とね。
17 years old. Even though he was so small, even though he was covered in wrinkles, he was only 70 years old.
このままだと、世界が死んじゃう。ノア2に、あらゆる人の心は支配されちゃう。だから、君に託したんだ。
Entrusted. Entrusted what exactly?
意味がわかんないよ。そんなの僕には関係ない。頼むよ。僕を消して。今すぐに消してほしい。
Shogun's wrinkles stirred. It was likely making an expression, but I couldn't see it as anything other than wrinkles shifting on his face.
全部僕のせいなんだ。僕が IR2 を妄想しちゃったせいで。なんとか止めようとしたけど、僕はこんな体だから満足に動くこともできない。それで君を生み出した。君に止めてもらうために。
そんなの知らない。僕は君のコピーだけど、僕はやりたくない。コピーだけが苦しまなくちゃいけないなんて、そんなの嫌だ。死なせてよ。
君はコピーじゃない。もう一人の僕だ。
つまりコピーじゃないか。君のしてることはすごく残酷だ。
悪かったって思ってるよ。でも、他に方法はなかった。今世界の命運は、君にかかっていると言っても過言じゃないんだ。だから。
そんなのリミに頼めばいいじゃないか。知り合いなんでしょ。
Acquaintances? I said that on purpose. I didn't want to think they were lovers or good friends. And so, only then did I realize my feelings. I was jealous of the original me. That was rich coming from the delusionary existence. What a fucking disgrace. I couldn't believe myself. There was not knowing your place. And then there was this. My own feelings made me want to throw up. My emotions continued to spiral. I wanted to die.
リミは、ナナミを助けに行って、逆に捕まっちゃったんだ。
え？
リミはね、僕を救おうとしてくれていた。その理由は、君も知っているよね。
あれは 空、あの空はどうしてあんなに泣きたくなるくらい青いのかな。
それを望んだから。
私は望んでない。
僕が望んだんだ。ここは君の心象世界であると同時に僕の心象世界でもあるから。
Rumi turned toward me. She stared at me, her face deeply puzzled.
あなた誰？
あなた誰？
ここには私以外はいないはずなのに、あなたは別の私。
違うよ。
だったら誰？どうやってここに来たの？私の心の中だよ。ずっと暗闇しかなかった。光は私に当たるスポットライトだけ。それなのにあなたが来た途端に暗闇がなくなって空ができた。
妄想がシンクロしたんだ。君の力がとても強かったから。
そう。
Rumi looked up toward the sky once more. It was a crystal clear azure sky.
私、本物の空見たことないんだ。私っていう人格が生まれた時にはね、もう暗い部屋に閉じ込められてた。心の中も外も闇しかなかった。そこからは絶対に出してもらえないの。私今死のうとしてたんだ。心を自殺させるの。きっとこれまでの私もそうしてきたと思うし、でもせっかくあなたが空を持ってきてくれたから、この光景を記憶に刻んでおいていいかな。次の私がまたこうして想像できるように。
死にたいの？
うん。
本当の空を見てみたいとは思わないの？
ねえ、空って本当にあるのかな？
あるよ。でも現実の空はこの空よりも汚れてる。
どこにある？
Give me a second, I need to check my email, my work email. Alright. Let them close this window. Alright. Okay.
あの空はどこにあるの？
君が望めばどこにでも。
望んでいいの？
もちろんだよ。
どうやって望むの？
光は電磁場の波。その振動現象を人の視覚は色として捉えるんだ。
Fucking nerd. I'm just kidding.
自分のデッドスポットに望む色を当てはめてごらん。そうすれば君の望む世界の色を作り出せる。 世界は君の望みに応えてくれるよ。
Several days, even months, perhaps have passed since that encounter. And one day, Rumi had come to my hospital room. She and I were fellow patients at the same hospital, fellow possessors of something that transcended human understanding, the power of Kikulamanyak, an attribute that we were unsure whether to arbor or to take pride in.
お兄、お客さんだよ。ねえねえ、誰？彼女さん、いつの間に？やるね、お兄ってば。また会えたね。
She was deeply haggard. Her skin was morbidly pale. Her hair was dry and neglected, and growing according its own whims. Her fingernails were cracked. Her eyes gauntly squinted, as if dazzled by a brilliant light.
本物の空は見られた？
あ、そうだ。
Nanami, who had been watching us talking, suddenly clapped her hands in apparent remembrance.
お洗濯してこなくちゃ。リミさんでしたっけ？どうぞごゆっくり。
Thanks, Nanami. That's so cute. Nanami left the room. Rumi and I vacantly watched her depart. Rumi then turned back toward me.
匠はいつから入院してるの
5年ぐらい。
退院の予定は
ないよ。僕の余命はあと2年ぐらいだと思うし。
私はあなたのおかげで頑張ることができた。終わりなんて絶対にないと思ってた。でもあなたが教えてくれた空を見るまで頑張ろうと思った。そしたら急に外に出してもらえた。用済みになったって言った方が正しいかもしれないけど、
そう。
私はあなたに救われたの。だから今度は私があなたの力になりたい。
そんなの気にしなくていい。わざわざ僕に会いに来なくてもいいよ。君にはこれから普通に生きてほしい。
普通の生き方なんてわからないから。
Rumi's past. Rumi's feelings. Rumi's resolve. My chest tightened as I remembered them all.
なんでリミは僕に近づいてきたの？
彼女は君の近くにいることで、君の行動、君に接触してくる人間のことを監視して、君を覚醒させないようにしていたんだ。彼女を恨まないであげて。彼女はただおせっかいなだけなんだ。
It's good to know that this is actually her personality. She's a hopeless meddler. A tinge of sadness appeared in Shogun's voice.
巻き込みたくなかったのに。彼女は僕がどれだけ止めても聞いてくれなかった。勝手に僕に恩義なんか感じて、本当におせっかいだよ。
リミとナナミは誰に捕まってるの？
プロジェクトノアの責任者。すべての黒幕。野呂瀬源一、かつてリミを捕らえて拷問していた男でもある。それなのにリミはナナミと僕と、そして君を助けるためにあの男のところへたった一人で乗り込んでいっちゃった。
A voice echoed within my mind. It uttered the words of Harumi I didn't know, words she had spoken to Shogun. Oh, fuck the ringtone! Oh, shit!
リミ
うん私
Joke, it's not the hand. They have the same ringtone. They have the same ringtone. So cute. They're so cute.
実はちょっとした報告があります。ナナちゃんをこれから助けに行こうと思って。
やめるんだ。君はあの男、ノロゼとはもう会いたくないでしょ。
私って信用されてないな。平気だってば。昔の話だしね。そもそも私の感情とナナちゃんを助けることとどっちを優先させるかなんて決まりきってることだよ。
ナナミを助けるのも、プロジェクトノアを止めるのも、僕のやるべきことだ。君は、そこまでしなくていいんだよ。
言ったでしょ。私はあなたの力になりたいって。それにタクには関わらせたくないの。
おせっかいだね。
そうかもね。あなたにしか言われたことはないけど。ねえ、ちょっとだけ語っちゃっていいかな。タクにね、いろいろひどいこと言っちゃったんだ。しかもそんなことしておいてすごく自分勝手なんだけど、私彼と一緒に過ごした時間はとっても楽しかったって思っちゃってるんだ。何もかもが妄想でまみれたまやかしでしかなかったのに。学生生活もあの学校に私やタクが通っていることも、大地と友達だっていうことも、私がタクと一緒にいようとしたことも、タクの存在そのものも。タクってどうしようもないくらい情けなくて、どうしようもないくらい弱くて、きっと普通の女だったら見向きもしないような男の子なんだよ。なのに私の心には楽しかったっていう気持ちがあるの。なのに私の心にはもっと一緒にいたかったっていう気持ちがあるの。この気持ちって何なのかな。
インプリンティングのようなもの、かもしれないね。
本能っていうことかな。それって意外とロマンチックかも。
君が楽しかったなら、きっと、彼も楽しかったと思うよ。
そうだといいな。私はタクと似たようなものだから。肉体が妄想から作られた存在と、人格が妄想から作られた存在と、どっちも変わらないでしょ。だからタクのこと消したくなかった。消さなくちゃダメだって思ってたんだけどね。でもいつの間にか感情移入しちゃったみたい。タクにはごく普通に暮らしていってもらいたいの。私はタクミもタクも助けたい。ねえ、タクのことはそっとしておいてあげて。
そういうわけにはいかない。ノア2を破壊するために、彼は必要だよ。
私が何とかするから。
君はそんなことしなくていい。君こそ、ごく普通に暮らしていくべきだ。
さてと、そろそろ切るね。
リミ、やめて。
本当に大丈夫だって。あなたは何も心配しないで。私が全部決着をつけてくるから。ね、たくみ。
After it was already too late, Rumi's words sank into my heart. She really was a hopeless meddler. Why did she have to keep fighting so hard? Why did she have to keep acting so selfishly?
私はタクの味方だから。
Memories of Remy all came back to me. Memories of the short time we had spent together until now. Memories of the feelings that had been hidden behind every word she said.
私が一緒にいてあげる。
Over the past year and a half, if I had to summarize what I've done, it'll be ESO, RMT, and eroge. I devoted myself entirely to those things, all while staying shut inside my base. I'd barely gone to school, and I rarely tried to talk to anyone. Born into this world, I live as though I was dead. For the past month or so, that had changed. And even though, as a result of this, I've been lied to,
朝一緒に学校行って。
she had stayed by the side of someone like me.
学校では休み時間にどうでもいいこと話して。
She had given me peace of mind when I was quivering in fear.
お昼休みは一緒にご飯食べて。
She had supported the failure that I was, encouraged me.
夕方一緒に帰って。
She had embraced me.
帰るついでにたまにどこかのお店に寄ったりして。
She had thought a delusionary existence like me, the warmth that humanity held.
タクの部屋でちょっとだけおしゃべりして。
She could have erased me, and yet she tried to protect me.
それでまた明日ねって手を振って別れて。
She had made memories with me.
そんなのでいいなら私いくらでもしてあげるよ。
In my year and a half long life, I could still vividly remember the time I had spent with her, even now.
そういうの結構憧れなんだ。
Rumi's little gestures, Rumi's scent waffling from her hair, Rumi's little sighs, and the sound that came from them. Rumi's glimmering eyes, Rumi's cheerful voice, Rumi's tender warmth. Ah, I see it. I was in love with Rumi. How disgusting was that? What a freak! A weary smile crept on my face in response to my own creepiness. A delusionary existence. Falling in love? Were the feelings of love something that a delusionary existence could feel? Or were they a mere illusion? I really didn't know, but I wanted to be true to these feelings. Rimi saw me as a friend. There was no way she saw me as someone of the opposite sex. Besides, an otaku freak like me wouldn't go well together with her. But even so, even if she didn't love me back, even if it was just for my own satisfaction, even if I was just a delusionary existence, I at least wanted to do something for someone, for Rimi, before I disappeared. It was disgusting that a disgusting otaku freak would fall in love. It was disgusting that a disgusting delusionary existence would fall in love. But so what? even if it was disgusting, even if it wouldn't go anywhere, I didn't want to brush these feelings away as mere illusions and delusions. The memories of this past month were both Remy's and mine, mutually recognized between us both. Even if the rest was just make believe, these memories, the feelings born from them, were real.
世界を救ってほしい。
So Shogun said. I shook my head.
僕は勇者じゃない。人間でもない。そんな僕に、世界を救えとか、何を考えてるの？
君には本当に悪いと思ってるけど、君にやってもらうしかないんだ。
自分に謝るなんてバカみたいだ。
I glared at the real me. The real me caught the fake me's glaze.
僕は君が嫌いだ。
僕は、君が羨ましいよ。
僕は世界のためになんか頑張らない。世界を救うとか、そんなことどうでもいい。
I'd be the one to give meaning to my birth.
ただ、僕は、リミを、助ける。
ありがとう。
Oh, this picture. This picture. The background. Everyone has a fucking weapon. Anyway, the sounds around me started coming back. The more and more oil were being poured on the fires of chaos. It had already become a riot. I was hit with the smell of blood around me. I heard sounds of screams, shouts, moans, and a mechanical noise that sounded almost like an audio feedback. It all pooled together and overflowed across the cross.
理想度を手に入れる方法を教えて。
君はすでにそれを知っているはずだよ。
My gaze moved upward, looking for the silhouette of a sword blending into the scenery. Rocks were thrown around, canisters and tear gas made smoke rise from ground, and people from every direction crashed into time and time again. In the center of it all, I focused and sought the sword I had once seen from the roof of Opha. I had to be visible already. Without a doubt, it had to be here, somewhere. Lost amid the scenery, my D sword was always right beside me. Now, seize it.
見つけた。
On the building to the right of 107, there was a vertical billboard, and when I looked toward it, I saw the shape of a sword. Anxiety seeped into me. I swallowed back my saliva. When I looked from the roof of O front, I had been able to perceive its shape. But in the end, I hadn't been able to physically grasp it.
自分の意志を強く持つんだ。迷っちゃダメだからね。君にはもう、剣を手に入れる資格は十分にある。
I extended my hand as I stood in place. In order to save someone dear to me, I had to get it. No matter what. No matter what. I grit my teeth. This wouldn't be like last time. My mind was surprisingly calm. I wasn't afraid. I couldn't be afraid. But it wasn't that I was keeping a cold head. Emotions simmered and boiled inside me. I had something I needed to do.
掴むんだ。
107 was about 100 meters away, and upon overlapping my fist with the sword, I grasped it. Even though I should have grabbed an empty spot in the air, there was something there. It was neither hot nor cold, nor hard nor soft. Keeping my hold on it, I drew it closer to me. Ripples surfaced across the air, and from within those ripples, it slid free. Yeah, boy! This motherfucker got his D sword! All too long to be called a sword. Delicate enough to shatter at a moment's notice. Pervaded with a phantasmal elegance. Lacking any ridiculous features, absent of all garnish. With immaculate malice, capable of swallowing one's soul whole. On which belong an awe-inspiring beauty. Linking with my exalted heart, the design of the sinister flames of the handle flickered. I didn't feel even an ounce of weight. Rather, it was as if it was an extension of my arm. As though it had been there from the very beginning. As though it were a part of my own body. I didn't feel like I was holding a sword. So, this was a D-Swordle! I grasped it firmly with both my hands. I should have been able to real boot it now, if I got it to be visually recognized by my surroundings. The sword would be brought forth into reality. As for how to do it, I don't know. I simply desired it. I shouted with my heart for it to become reality. All hesitation within me was gone. The D-Sword, as if answering my call, started faintly shining. The flame pattern on the hilt transformed into real flames. Flames which quickly enveloped the sword, and yet I feel no heat. Soon enough, those flames were swallowed by the entirety of the sword's body, and together with a fierce impact, the D-Sword shone with crimson light. A number of people around me were surprised by my sword. However, it was only a handful of them. Only a handful were left dumbfounded by its appearance. The others were too focused punching or kicking each other. The riot didn't seem to be stopping anytime
この
soon.
暴動を引き起こしているポーターたちを探すんだ。彼らの持つ機械を破壊すればバイオリズムの高騰も収まる。
ポーター。
ノア2の端末としての存在。君はすでにそのヒントを見てきたはずだ。君の頭の中にそれは記憶として刻まれている。
I called forth all that I have seen.
L2 の時 0.62 メガ DE ハイスコアです。
我が社ではポーターです。言い換えればマインドコントロールのための部隊といったところでしょう。
All of the things I had unconsciously seen, and all of the thoughts I had unconsciously read.
僕は盗撮野郎ってことか。お似合いだね。
I like how all those player perspectives were actually something he also actually seen. Shogun calmly gave me orders as I laughed at
チャ
myself.
ネルを解放してポーターたちの心を読む。コズピーのドーム。彼らはこのスクランブル交差点のどこかに居場所を探り当てて。
I opened my channel. I didn't have to think about what to do. Without being conscious of it, I enacted while I feel alone. And then, the minds of everyone here, their negative emotions, became visible and instantly flowed into me. Malice, hatred, envy, lust, severity, cowardice, superficiality, corruption, cunning, indecency, hideousness, vulgarity, libido, madness, bloodthirst. It was the manifestation of unsightly emotions people hid from one another, more brutal, equivocal, repugnant than words could ever be. All the negative emotions people held inside them became a torrent of images, and this torrent proceeded to swallow up, shatter, and violate my mind. I was verbally abused by words of disdain. Gazes of contempt rained down on me. I was spat on. My nails were peeled off. I was punched in the face multiple times. I was kicking the ass. My hair was torn off. My nose was chewed to shreds. My eyeballs were gouged out. My tongue was ripped from my mouth. My blood was sucked. I was showered with boiling water and covered with burns. I was raped in the ass. My genitals were crushed. All my skin were torn off. My ass. My arms were broken. All my bones were broken. I was beaten with a blunt weapon. I was stabbed with a blade. My organs were gouged out. My neck was strangled. My flesh was eaten by a giant beast. I was thrown off a high place and drowned in a pool of water. I had my entire body burned by flames. Having synchronized with it all, my mind was being broken. I felt like I was about to go insane. I grit my teeth and desperately held onto my consciousness. Was this how Cosby had lived her whole
見るべき
life?
要素をコントロールするんだ。全てを受信しちゃダメだ。標的を絞り、音を頼りにする。
The sound. All while enduring the negative emotions overwhelming me, I listened carefully. What came to me were voices from all around. Isolating them, I searched for the sound. I heard a mechanical sound, the one Seiratan had said would kill me. The sound had also been inside the memories I've gotten from reading minds. Senna had destroyed the porter's rucksack that emitted the sound with her D sword. If I were to focus on that sound, the delusion I heard. There were multiple voices. There were more than one porter here.
3人いるみたいだ。
Holding my breath, I took a step forward. In front of me was the chaotic crowd. Without a trace of order, they moved throughout the scramble crossing as they pleased, beating each other within an inch of their lives. It would be difficult to go straight through and hack the delusions of the people in the direction of the target. And so, little by little, people in my field of view made way, and there a path was made for me. There was a single man about 50 meters from me, and all of the obstacles between me and him had now been removed. Our eyes met. He was a plump man in a suit, wearing a rucksack on his back.
1人目。
Taking the shortest path there, I ran straight ahead, through the crowd, without bumping into anyone, all while dragging my D-sword along with me. The porter, having noticed me, frantically turned around and tried to run, but I wouldn't allow it. Just like Senna, I swung my D-sword, a blade longer than I was tall. As always, it felt weightless. I could wield it like an extension of my arm. The tip of the D-sword dug into the rucksack, and then, almost as if it had been melted in an unfathomably high temperature, its contents were vaporized. The man sank to the ground, cradling his head as he trembled with his fear. And then, looking at him even one more time, I headed for the second one. Below O-Front. Once again, the obstacles leading up to it began to disappear, and the path was built. The man who stood there was extremely thin, wore a checkerboard shirt and a pair of jeans. He had long hair, and his skin was alarmingly pale. He seemed to be holding a bag, which he was treating with great care. Noticing me, he tried to blend into the crowd, but before he could do anything, I threw he threw his D-sword. Kobe! I formed a delusion. Ignoring all known laws of physics, it flew parallel to the ground, soaring faster and faster. And delicately corrected its path and pierced the man's bag with unmatched accuracy. It emitted a faint light, and the man fell to the ground. Just one more. I approached the man now on the ground and retrieved my D-sword. The third one was in front of Hachiko. I've seen that porter countless times by now. Actually, let me be more precise. I had talked to them almost every day. The crowd dissipated, and for the third time, a direct path appeared. And at the end of it was a woman wearing white scrubs, a fact that made her conspicuous as could be.
あなたが3人目です。葉月さん。いや、グリム。
Grim. The nurse, who had smiled so gently to me at the hospital, was now glaring daggers at me. She had a large handbag with her. Most likely, there was a Nova 2 terminal inside.
真実を暴くんだ。彼女がしてきたことをこの場にいる人たちに提示すれば、この熱病のような混乱は収まる。
She did?
彼女がグリムなら、これまでの不自然な言動に君は気づいているはず。僕が最初に君に接触した時のことを思い出して。僕は君に貼り付け事件の予言をした。君への継承だった。でも僕よりも先に貼り付けを予言した人間がいる。
I remembered. I remembered the exchange we had at that time. A few moments before Shogun talked to me for the first time, Grin had left the chat room. But right before that, they posted an image as a joke. A drawing. Her schizo drawings. The very same drawing that Hazuki-san had scribbled on the medical chart. The drawing had been very poorly done, but what mattered was it was a depiction, what it was depicting. The crucifixion case. Besides, the first time Grimm had talked to me about the Nugent cases, they had said this. It's all up in your neighborhood, lol. Even though I had never told them I lived in Shibuya, even a few hours earlier, Grimm had left some comments that made it seem like they knew I was Nishijo Takumi. You're a celebrity, so you'll be the center of attention. The second time I'd gone to the hospital, Hazuki-san said,
高階先生はもういません。
and a week later, Dr. Takashina's corpse had been found. I swallowed back my saliva.
あの人が真犯人。
Her mind was right before me. If I looked inward, I could see. Oh, no, no, no,
信仰
no.
の救いあれ
Midnight fell on AH Tokyo General Hospital, the place of Hazuki Shino's work. Within one of its operating rooms, the nurse stood nearly still. On the bed lay a young man, Konoe Chizuo. Konoe Chizuo. The sleeping pills he had been given had induced a deep coma in him.
信仰の救いあれ
As she repeated the same words over and over like a Buddhist prayer, Hazuki caressed her large, swollen abdomen. She slowly removed her white scrubs, then sat atop the operating table, scalpel in hand. Oh my
救いあれ
god. Then, without anesthesia to speak of, she incisioned her own abdomen. Man, that is hardcore. Oh my god. An incision so masterfully done, it would have earned her praise from surgeons and obstetricians alike. Although she was a mere nurse, her surgical skills were quite remarkable, even while enduring an uninhibited pain of self-surgery. The incision she made in her abdomen was performed with utmost dexterity. Blood and amniotic fluid flowed from the wound. Her face contorted in pain. And after a few grueling moments passed, Hazuki inserted her own hand inside her abdomen. Man, she is so hardcore, man. And from within her, she removed a blood-stained fetus. The fetus had yet to reach full maturity, and its forced removal had already ended its life prematurely. Hazuki performed an opelotomy, cutting the umbilical cord. Upon completion of this, she embraced her child lovingly, then placed it on the sand next to the operating table. With her hands now free, she began suturing her wound. The whole ordeal took nearly an hour to complete. With the sheer amount of pain, the procedure procured any person would have fainted long ago. Returning the fetus to her embrace, she stood up from the operating table and approached the man lying down on the bed. Her bloodshot eyes She looked toward the unconscious man's face and trusted the scalpel into his abdomen. The movement was reckless and without care, providing a vast contrast to how delicately and accurately she had torn open her own abdomen before. The pain roused the man, but before he could consider any hope of escape, he realized both his arms and legs were tied securely to the bed. Disregarding the man's screams, Hazuki drew back the scalpel she had used to stab him. It cut through his flesh, through his skin. Blood gushed forth, covering his face in crimson.
信仰の救いをあなたに
She neared her hands to the victim's wounds, and then she forcefully began to widen horizontally. The sound of flesh being torn open echoed throughout the operating room. The man's body started violently convulsing, and the pain forced him undergo a cycle of fainting then waking up again. As she gazed at the gaping wound, Hazuki smiled a gentle smile. She then took her own child, which she had just taken from herself, and forcibly pushed it inside the man's gaping wound. Oh man, that was full schizo
信
film.
仰の救いあれ
Jesus Christ, man. That is next level hardcore. Like I already have an idea, but man, reading that is just like fuck. Holy shit. Anyway, let's continue in a while. Let me and just checking my email really quickly. I'm actually getting hungry. I haven't eaten dinner yet. I'm gonna grab some fried chicken or something. I actually thought about that. Holy shit. Oh yeah. There's gonna be a concert of FF16 and 14 because Soken, yeah, okay. Oh, Soken is attending. He's actually going to fuck. Anyway. Let me continue. I don't want to be very distracted right now. Midnight fell on AH Tokyo General Hospital, the place of Hazuki Shino's work. Within one of its operating rooms, the nurse stood nearly still. On the bed lay her psychiatrist colleague, Takashina Fumio. He was tied to the bed, but this was not the only thing that had been done to him. His cranium had been opened, his brain was exposed, his skull had been cut cleanly, the line right above his head.
高階先生に信仰の救いあれ
葉月くん、こんなことやめろ。
By the way, I just found out this is Akira Ishida. I was surprised he's doing an old man voice here. Takashina was conscious. Due to the effects of anesthesia, he did not feel any pain from the cut. The utter dread he felt kept his eyes open wide, and his body was sweating greatly.
救いあれ
Ignoring Takashina's pleas for his life, Hazuki retrieved a shiny silver utensil from the pocket of her white scrubs. A utensil that could not be referred as a traditional surgical tool. It was a spoon, an all too ordinary piece of tableware.
何をするつもりだ。よせ、やめろ。
Hazuki reveled in ecstasy. As if enjoying a meal of curry and rice, she took a spoonful of Takashina's brain. Yeah, I saw this in the anime. I saw this in the anime, man. She then took the spoon and violently cast the contents of it onto a stainless steel tray. The pink brain tissue was pulped into jelly-esque substance. Hazuki trusted the spoon inside the brain once again. This time, however, she accumulated even more matter than she had the first time as she scraped away the brain tissue. Takashina's own brain was getting removed from his body, yet he felt no pain, nor did he lose consciousness. As well as this, the anesthesia had robbed him of any freedom of movement whatsoever. All the man could do was tremble in fear. I cannot imagine how this works. Wouldn't I don't get how someone is conscious, doesn't feel pain, their brain literally removed, so they're literally losing their conscious. I don't get it. I don't get how that works. I don't know if this is realistic. I mean, there's a concept of brain dead, but the body's still alive. But if the person is still conscious, I don't get how that works. Anyway, this is fiction, so I don't know if you could actually do that, and the person still is quote unquote aware at that point.
あなたの
I
記
don't
憶
get it.
なんですね。
Hazagashino looked up at the projection in shock. On the scramble crossings, 4 massive jumbotrons. Her very own memories were being shown. She couldn't even understand how it was being done. Perhaps it was Nishijo Takumi's power as Gigulu no Manya.
あなたの記憶です。
Man, she's next level fucked up, man. Especially the man-child shit. she commits her own C-section, then she just like hardcore gets her own undeveloped fetus, then throws it to the man. It's like that was so hardcore. With his head hung low and the sword in hand, Nishijo Takumi murmured those words. The riot came to a halt. Silence was now a ruling entity. The thousands of people who had been assailing each other until a moment ago were now looking toward the screens. Some went pale, some averted their eyes, some felt such horror it compelled them to. Yeah, any regular person, if you see that fuck, oh, I'm not regular. The mass media was starting to record Hazuki with their cameras. Countless blinding flashes ensured.
あなたがニュージェネ事件の真犯人だったんだ。
私の記憶を映像に投影したんですね。
もう言い逃れはできませんよ。胎児とあなたの DNA を鑑定すればわかることです。どうしてあんなことを。ねえ、クリム。
ナイトハルト。すべては教祖様のお言葉なんですよ。
Naito Haruto. Hazuki plunged her hand into the bag resting over her shoulder. From it, she retrieved both a Noa-2 terminal port and a scalpel. She gripped the scalpel and placed it right against her throat. Due to the nature of her position as a nurse, she knew the location of the carotid artery all too well. Hazuki smiled at Nishijo Takumi. It was a kind smile, much like the one she would so often show her patients.
信仰の救いあれ
Man. Fucking cultists are next level, man. Yeah, next level cults, man. You gotta love that shit. Not that I haven't, I mean, let me go through Euphoria again. Anyway, as her own blood gushed forth from her neck, her entire body was painted in a bright crimson.
エスパーだ。
救世主
Kuseishi.
だわ。
Kuseishi. Oh shit! Mamiya Takachi. I didn't know who, but someone mumbled those words. After seeing the sheer number of gazes pierce through me, I realized that those words were also directed at me. In front of a countless number of people, Hazagashino had committed suicide by slitting her throat. Although calling it martyrdom might have been more accurate, the choking smell of blood filled the air. The riot had now entirely stopped. Hazagashino's memory of crimes she committed, which I had projected onto the jumbo screen, ended up being the perfect thing to make the excited parts of the mob quiet down. The shocking nature of what she had displayed left everyone. I mean, honestly, the second one was like a fancy way of killing someone, but the first one was so hardcore for me. It's like so fucked up, man. I mean, there's a lot of fucked up things in visual novels, but I don't know. There's a certain threshold where you can be desensitized, but this is maybe my threshold was a little lower. A little kind of close for it's close to Ryaji's level, but it's still like And I was visualizing it in my brain. Because, anyone who plays visual novels are super coping without, since, the anime was kind of not. Whatever. Anyway, let's continue here. The shock. Yeah, I already read that one. Even now, Hazuki Shino's corpse was still bleeding. A number of people then walked up to it and began kicking it. It was the corpse of the atrocious murderer, so there was no respects to be paid here. Next, they may even publicly behead her like it was the Middle Ages. What difference was there between her and the ones kicking her corpse? By their very nature, humans were disgusting, horrible creatures, myself included. The media, like hyenas, were accumulating around anything that could act like a scoop. Roughly half of them gathered around Hazuki Shino's corpse. Another half were surrounding me.
西野君、お見事でした。
今のは超能力ですか？やはりエスパーだったんですね。すごいです。
今日のこの集まりは初めから真犯人をおびき寄せるためのものだったの？
あなたの超能力は何歳頃に現れたものなんですか？
子供の頃のあだ名は神道とか呼ばれたことある？
I'm kind of hungry. I actually want to buy some fried chicken. Let me finish this scene. You know what? I want to buy some fried chicken for real.
今後警察の捜査に協力する予定は？
うちの局の番組に出てくれないかな？
One after the other, endless words of praise were thrown my way. Wait, let me actually check what time the place closes down. Near me. What time does it close? Closes 10 p.m. Okay. Closes 12 a.m. Well, obviously I'll go to the closer branch. Because the Times Square branch was shit, compared to like the let me actually check if there's a difference between. I still don't get why they. Anyway, I'll worry about my own time. Anyway, one up. Yeah, I already started that.
西条、よくやったぞ。
Fucking knows him.
お前すげえよ。
One after the other, endless words of affection were thrown my way. I felt hollow, hearing those voices, a fabricating image formed by a public opinion, and a delusionary being. They weren't all too different, were they? It was all coming back. The energy they all shown when they see me up on top of Ophrah. Unable to take it anymore. Tears started flowing. I felt completely miserable. I felt completely ridiculous. Yeah, fuck society, man. I didn't have it in me to keep going without crying. I wasn't a hero.
僕はキモオタでセーラタンのエロいフィギュアにハーハーしてる変態だ。18歳未満だけどエロゲーして萌えって言ってる男だ。
I don't get it. I don't get why this is a problem. I don't get. I mean, I get why the previous one was a problem, but here I was like, I'm not 18, but I play a shit ton of eroge and then moe over sprites and CGs constantly. I mean, I okay, it's because I play an eroge myself, right? But what about the age? You know. I mean, maybe being 13 was it? Maybe being 13 is enough, but I don't know, man. This is such a traditional view, and I don't see what's wrong with this one. But the previous one, yeah, I totally understand that. I totally understand that. I totally understand that. I totally understand what's wrong with that.
頭の中じゃ街を歩く女どもを裸にひむいてエロい妄想してる。それが僕だ。
A lot of people do this, by the way. Tears and mucus smeared down my face. I forgot I was being broadcast live across the entire country. It didn't even occur to me that I was shaming myself yet again. I couldn't help it. I was physically incapable of reading the room.
そうだよ。これでも僕は英雄かよ。違う。 僕は英雄なんかじゃない。所詮、妄想の存在で、希望だぜ。一人じゃ何もできないヘタレだ。
I love this mental breakdown. The voices around me went silent, quiet. The onlookers sank to silence. The people from media looked at me dubiously. Within the heart of Shibuya, in the middle of the humongous scramble crossing, only my voice was echoing. Wow, this is the most Kino speech. having a mental breakdown, man. I totally understand that. I also have a mental breakdown like that.
それが僕だ。お前らに他人に僕っていう人間を決めさせない。僕の本質は僕が決める。
Face.
僕はお前らのおもちゃじゃない。見せ物なんかにはならない。僕にはやるべきことがあるんだ。僕はお前たちなんかのために行動しない。
Rumi's smile appeared in my mind.
僕はただ
For the sake of those I cared about, I'm here to fight and disappear. But before I could voice that, I suddenly noticed that the night sky reflected in the corner of my eye was turning pure white. It wasn't a cloud, nor it was snow falling a little too early in the year. By the time I realized it was the same phenomenon from back then when the earthquake had hit, it was already too late.
サードメルト予定より早い。
Ayoy! The first thing I felt was the very earth itself beginning to rumble. The ground began to shake. The white in the sky was spreading farther and farther. The very next moment, I was struck with a violent ringing in my ears. It was such an intense trill, resonant sound my head felt like it was about to burst open. Everyone else around me was covering their ears too. And then... Rest in peace, Shibuya. The world was dyed completely white. Alright, first ending, let's go. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna get my food now. I'm gonna order food and I'm gonna eat dinner. And I'll come back and we'll have... If I'm lucky, yeah, I think I'm gonna finish... I'll get the first ending today. Right? I should be able to get it, right? I don't know how long chapter 10 is gonna be like, but if we're lucky we could get the first ending out and we're gonna start off with B end. Then we're gonna move on to B ending, then the routes until we get to the true ending. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I'll be right back probably in an hour or two, or maybe I don't know. I'm about to order my food, so and I'm gonna eat. But I want to immediately come back and read this. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the later stream.